I used to believe that pain had a pattern. You meet someone, you love them, you fight, you make up, and somewhere between apologies and promises, you grow old together. At 35, I thought I had the pattern figured out. Until the night my contractions began and my husband decided a family trip was more important than our child's birth. My name is Emily Carter. And for 10 years, I built my life around a man who couldn't be bothered to check the gas in our car, let alone check if I was breathing. It started 3 days before my due date. His parents were flying out for a reunion in Florida, and Daniel kept saying, "It's just 3 days, Em. You'll be fine. First babies always come late." He said it with that joking tone that used to sound charming, but had lately begun to scrape my nerves raw. I laughed it off at first. I'd learned to keep peace by agreeing. When you're 8 months pregnant and swollen to the size of your own shadow, you pick your battles. But the morning the contractions began, the joke stopped being funny. He was loading suitcases into the trunk, chatting on speakerphone with his mother about sunscreen, while I stood by the passenger door gripping my belly. "Daniel, something's wrong, I think." He cut me off with a grin. "You're just nervous. False alarm. You always overthink." Another contraction hit. Harder. The kind that folds you in half. I bent over the hood of the car, breathing like the nurse had taught me. In, out, count to 4, again. He noticed then, barely. "You sure it's not Braxton Hicks?" he asked, scrolling through his phone. "Daniel," I hissed, "my water just broke." He froze. For a second, I thought maybe this was the moment everything would click, the moment he'd finally become the man I needed. But then his mother called from the driveway. "Danny, we're late for the airport." He looked at me, then at his parents. I saw the conflict flicker and die. "Call an Uber to the hospital, babe. I'll be back before you know it." I don't remember what I answered. Just the sound of the car door slamming and the tires pulling away while another contraction tore through me. 15 minutes later, I was alone in the front seat, breathing through waves of pain, watching raindrops streak across the windshield. The hospital was only 8 miles away, but 8 miles felt like another planet. I fumbled for my phone and called my sister. She answered on the first ring, heard my voice, and didn't ask a single question. "Stay put, I'm coming." By the time she reached me, the contractions were 2 minutes apart. She drove like the wind while I clutched the seatbelt and prayed the baby would wait. We reached the hospital just in time. Nurses rushed out with a wheelchair. Someone asked where my husband was. I opened my mouth to answer, but all that came out was a broken laugh. Hours blurred into one another. Bright lights, monitors, nurses' voices. Somewhere between the pain and the fear, I thought about Daniel's last words. "You'll be fine." I wasn't fine. I was terrified, exhausted, humiliated. Every time the door opened, I half expected him to walk in, breathless and apologetic. He didn't. At 3:42 p.m., my daughter Grace came into the world screaming like she already knew how unfair it could be. They placed her on my chest, and everything else disappeared. I cried. Not from pain, but from the certainty that I could survive without him. While I fed Grace for the first time, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Hey, everything good? We just landed. Hope the contractions stopped." I stared at the screen, thumb trembling, and realized I had a choice. I could keep playing the quiet wife who forgives, or I could start writing a new pattern. I turned the phone face down and whispered to my newborn, "It's just you and me now." The hospital quieted after sunset. Machines hummed softly, and every few seconds, Grace made that small, new world sigh that melted me from the inside out. My phone sat on the bedside table, face down, buzzing every hour. I didn't touch it. By midnight, the messages stacked up. Daniel: "Hey, babe, just checking in." Daniel: "Did the pain stop?" Daniel: "You okay?" Daniel: "Emily, answer me, please." Each one came with a longer pause between them. I kept my eyes on Grease's tiny fingers curling around mine. At 2:17 a.m., the buzzing changed. He was calling. I hesitated, then slid my thumb across the screen. "Emily?" His voice was higher than usual, almost breaking. I could hear airport noise behind him. "Your sister just called my mom. She said you were in the hospital. Are you in labor?" I let the silence stretch. Only the sound of Grease's breathing filled the space. "Em, talk to me." Finally, I said, "She's here." The line went quiet. "She... what?" "Grace, your daughter. Born 8 hours ago." He started to speak, stammered, then tried again. I... I didn't think it would happen so fast. Mom said..." "She said you had time," I finished for him. "You always think you have time, Daniel." A loudspeaker crackled behind him. Flight 272, boarding now. He must have realized he was still holding his boarding pass. "I'm coming home. I'm getting the next flight. I'll fix this, I swear." "You won't." "Not this time." He said my name again, desperate now, but I ended the call. The next morning, the nurse asked if my husband would be visiting. "No," I told her. "Just my sister." My sister arrived with a bag of coffee and clean clothes. She had already heard the story from half the family. Apparently, Daniel's parents were furious, though not at him, of course. How could Emily give birth without telling them? I almost laughed. People like them never saw the cracks until the whole house fell. By day 3, the hospital released us. I carried Grace out under a pale gray sky, the world both quieter and brighter than I remembered. My sister drove, and as we pulled away, I turned off my phone completely. A week later, I finally checked my voicemail. There were 34 messages. "Em, please, I'm sorry. Mom's upset. I should have stayed. I know that now. Can I see her? Just once? You can hate me. Just don't keep her from me." Each one sounded smaller, thinner, until his last one was barely a whisper. "I saw her picture online. She looks like you. I don't know how to fix this." I listened once, then deleted them all. 3 months passed. Grace grew chubby and smiled with her whole face. I started working again from home, writing copy for a local design firm. Every keystroke felt like rebuilding a part of myself I had abandoned long ago. People kept asking if I'd forgiven him. I told them forgiveness wasn't the goal. Freedom was. Then, one rainy evening, I heard a knock on the door. Through the peephole, I saw him, disheveled, eyes red, holding a stuffed rabbit. For a heartbeat, old reflexes kicked in, the urge to smooth things over, to make it easy. Then I remembered the empty passenger seat, the pain, the loneliness of that night. I opened the door just enough for him to see me holding Grace. "She's beautiful," he said, voice cracking. "Please, Emily, just let me..." "You already had your moment. You left it sitting in a hospital parking lot." He blinked, rain mixing with tears, then nodded. "I know. I just needed to see her. He looked at Grace once more, whispered goodbye, and walked down the steps. The streetlights blurred around him. For the first time, I felt nothing but peace. I closed the door, kissed my daughter's forehead, and whispered, "We're okay, baby. We're finally okay." Grace was 3 months old, the first time I realized mornings didn't hurt anymore. For so long, I'd woken up listening for Daniel's keys, his footsteps, his voice. Now the only sound was my daughter's laugh, a gurgling, sun-bright sound that filled the apartment like music. I learned to measure time differently, not in fights or apologies, but in bottles, diapers, and the number of smiles I could coax from her before noon. Money was tight. I freelanced from the kitchen table, wrote ads between nap times, and sometimes cried when the bills came. But each small victory felt like a piece of the old me returning. I stopped hiding the stretch marks and stopped apologizing for needing space. I started looking at my reflection like she was someone worth keeping. 6 months later, a letter arrived. Not from Daniel, but from his mother. She wrote that Daniel had moved out on his own, that he wasn't the same since the baby, that maybe I should consider giving him another chance. I folded the letter once and dropped it in the recycling bin. You can't rebuild a house on the same broken foundation. By Grace's first birthday, I'd saved enough for a new apartment across town. It wasn't big, 2 rooms, creaky floors, but it smelled of paint and promise. On moving day, my sister brought pizza and laughed when I taped a photo of Grace onto the refrigerator. She said, "That's your 'we made it' wall." And she was right. We had. One evening, as the city lights blinked on, my phone buzzed again. An unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hi, Emily. It's Daniel." His voice was soft, cautious. "I heard you moved. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. I was stupid. I thought I had time." I looked at Grace, toddling across the floor, chasing a plastic ring. I said quietly, "You're right. You thought wrong." There was a long pause. "Can I ever see her?" "Maybe. When she's old enough to understand who you are and who I became." I ended the call gently, without anger. For the first time, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like closure. That night, I stood by the window with Grace asleep in my arms. Streetlights shimmered on wet pavement, and a soft wind brushed the curtains. For months, I'd replayed that day in the car. The pain, the fear, the sound of tires leaving the driveway. But now, instead of rage, I felt gratitude. Because being left there had forced me to choose myself. I whispered to the sleeping bundle in my arms. He left us once, but we'll never leave each other. Grace stirred, smiling in her sleep. I smiled back. And for the first time, I truly believed the words I'd been telling her all along. We're okay, baby. We're more than okay.